Ladies and gents, welcome back to the Player Zone YouTube channel and welcome back to our Premier League predictions for match week 16. It's come thick and fast, and what a last 7 days we've had here in Premier League football. Last weekend didn't fail to deliver. We've got midweek games with upsets galore and great score lines and excitement. And we come to this weekend, match week 16, with a lot of exciting fixtures. Some teams who can get out of the relegation zone, some at the top trying to refine some form. Some great sort of European battles at the top there, and so many juicy matchups to feast our eyes upon. In terms of the midweek fixtures, my prediction points, I managed 8 of them midweek, taking our score now for the season to 102 prediction points, which I'm pretty impressed with. Done all right so far, on a bit of a come up here in terms of our improved predictions. If you don't know how the point system works, if you're new here to the channel, it's 3 points for a correct scoreline, 1 point for the correct result, obviously 0 if you get neither. And before we jump into the predictions, if you wouldn't mind, guys, if you're new here, subscribing to the Player Zone channel for more football, sporting-based content. Leaving a comment down below what you think of these predictions, and also sharing the channel with mates. That would be much appreciated. But that all being said, guys, let's jump straight into the predictions. Alrighty, guys, our first game is in South London. It's Crystal Palace back at home, hosting Liverpool. A very interesting game, this one here. Liverpool coming off the back of a solid performance. Crystal Palace always had a good performance as well, but didn't quite get the result versus Bournemouth. I think it's just unlucky the timing of when they played Bournemouth a few weeks ago. They probably would manage to win that game 1-0, but in the form that Bournemouth are and Crystal Palace's inefficiency to take their chances in front of goal really hurt them in that game there. Once again, they're looking much more progressive and can play through the lines a bit more with the introduction of Elise back into this lineup. That midfield's looking, once again, a bit more progressive, looking like they can get in the front foot more often, which is really, really important for them, and create more chances, because when you've got Edouard up front, like I said midweek, most chances that fall to him will be finished. I think they're wanting Jordan Ayew to sort of up his, ability to be clinical in front of goal, to take more chances, because that'll be very important for them going forward in terms of goal scoring. Them at home, it's always a hard task, but when you've got a Liverpool side in the form they're currently in, and the way they're playing their football right now, constantly on the front foot, constantly putting teams under pressure, and always a threat in front of goal. It's about time they blow away a team. It's been a while since they put 4 or 5 past a team, and it could come in this game here. Crystal Palace looking, as they are, normally solid at the back, but in recent weeks a bit more exploited due to how they're trying to play a bit more on the front foot. If Crystal Palace get anything out of this game, it's going in the back of that great defence with Tyreek Mitchell, Anderson, Gahey, and also whether it be Ward or Klein there at fullback as well. Those would be the guys that will be very important for this side in this game. For Liverpool, though, I think, as I said, coming off that 2-0 result versus Sheffield United, a very workman-like result in the fact that they played great football, they got over the line, but it was a bit of a banana skill type game there. They got through it. Trent Alexander-Arnold, once again, being the superstar for this team. If he continues to perform at a high level, the defence continues to do very, very well in the way they play their football. I think they've been very well considering the style of football they played this season. It'll go a long way. Obviously, the loss of Matip's a big deal. He's probably out for the rest of the season with that knee injury. It'll have to be probably Kanate to slide in there alongside Van Dijk. So a bit of moving pieces at the back, but they've just got too much talent in midfield and forward areas for this team. So I see them winning this game 3-1. I think they've got too much talent. They've got too much quality in the final third, and that's where they'll hurt Crystal Palace in this game. The next game is on the south. It is Brighton hosting Burnley. Two teams with contrasting forms in recent weeks. Brighton refining that form once again, getting Premier League wins, improving their performances, and really getting at sides once more. I look back to last midweek, and it was a really hard game. Brentford are a very tough team. They match up really well with Brighton, but in that game there, Brighton took their chances. It came through Gross, it came through Hinchell, the youngster there. And boy, was he very impressive in this game. The assist firstly for Gross, who tucked into midfield and scored a great goal. But then also Hinchell himself coming through with a late winner there to make the game 2-1. They proved that in this game they're back to probably Brighton at their best. Much more solid at the back, scoring goals, but dominating possession and making chances out of the possession. I think their front three with João Pedro, Matoma, and Adringa's probably looking their best front three, and hopefully they can keep this front three settled and not try and mix and match too much. Buonanotte behind them as number 10 as well is a really, really important player for them, I feel like, in terms of balancing that midfield out and not just being workman-like midfielders, but also have a midfield in there who can create and can set up Brighton going forward, because whether it be Gilmore, Baleba, Milner, if he goes inside, Dahoud, none of them are really that creative spark that they need. And Buonanotte provides that for them, being a goal-scoring player, being someone who can play in behind João Pedro. So I think he'd be very important for this game as well. In terms of Burnley, once again, incredible performance versus Wolves, but doesn't get the result once more. And Vincent Kompany, despite the 5-0 win a week prior, you've got to highlight those points once again. A mistake leads to the goal. Hwang pounces on that. But outside of that, they dominated the second half of football and just didn't create any chances of note. I think if you looked at the highlights back, they probably didn't have a single chance in the highlights in the second half, because a lot of their possession was side to side. A lot of it was not progressive. I still believe they need to use the flanks, need to use their young, pacey wingers to get anything out of any games of football. I think in this one here, Brighton's quality and hopefully Brighton's defensive acumen and improvement at the back there will help them get over the line. I think Brighton win this game 2-0. Bit of a ball fest. Both teams will love to be in possession, but I think Brighton's quality in the final third, once again, will get them over the line in this one. Our next game is up north, and it's Manchester United hosting Bournemouth. And what a game this one could be. Bournemouth in great form. Manchester United having 3 award winners in the last month from the Premier League. They've got the manager of the month, the player of the month, and also the goal of the month. So in many ways, Manchester United are in great form as well. And midweek is probably Manchester United's best performance since the early portions of last season when Ten Hag turned that season around. It was free-flowing. It was progressive play for midfielders. Amrabat doing very well in that midfield area. And they exploited Chelsea's mistakes at the back with a high press with Anthony Garnacho, really keeping the width. Bruno Fernandes having a solid game for midfield, but Scott McTominay, the hero for Manchester United right now, with 2 goals to win the game. There was chances galore for Manchester United, nearly 30 shots in that game. So we're seeing once again that this team has it in them to go and be on the front foot and not be so passive like we saw against Newcastle. That's what you get when you play at home. The crowd sort of brings it out of you. Hoping this game, though, they stay up to that levels, because Bournemouth are a very, very solid side right now in the Premier League. Probably one of the most informed teams. Andre Ariola's side now playing that really high brand of football where they press high, they keep possessions in key areas and utilise a front 3 that is so talented in Semenyo, Marcus Tavernier. They've also got Justin Kluivert and obviously Dominic Solanke, who's proved to be probably one of England's best strikers at the current point in time. This team has goals in them once again because of the chance creation they've got. Philip Billing from midfield, when he plays, is so important to this side in terms of winning the ball back and getting them transitioning forward. So he'll be important in this game, and I think the game will be won with who can be more clinical in front of goals. Both teams can create some very good chances, but it's who can take them. Rasmus Højlund yet to score in the Premier League. We know, these smaller sides like Bournemouth struggle to score at Old Trafford, at these big stadiums. They probably get a bit overwhelmed by the situation, but in terms of the wingers for Bournemouth, if they can be a bit more clinical in front of goal, they'll be scoring a lot more goals, and I think they could cause some problems to Manchester United in this game, especially against a shakier defence that has been solid in recent weeks but can be exploited so easily through the lack of midfield defensive presence. Despite this all being said, I think Manchester United at home, with the confidence of the midweek tie, get the win. I've got United winning this game 3-1. Zurich and Bournemouth, though, will definitely be a threat in this game. Our next game is Sheffield United hosting Brentford. Now, with the new manager, Wild at the helm, back to the old days there at Sheffield United, they will look to have the new manager bounce, but we saw midweek they just got taken apart by Liverpool. Not good enough realistically. Their quality is lacking. They don't quite have the players to match up against most Premier League sides, and come up against a Brentford side who have been in really decent form as of recent. They just need to get the 3 points, and they'll be desperate in this game to get those 3 points and sort of re-kick their season off, because they've played much better football in the last 4 to 5 weeks, but only managed the 1 or 2 wins. So they're looking to really put another great performance, another great shift, but get the 3 points in this game. The only real problem for Brentford is the availability of Brian Mbeumo. He looks to be out, so it's going to be up to Johan Wissa up front to score the goals for them. That's why I see them struggling, because they struggle against low blocks and not being able to exploit teams on the counter-attack or getting in behind using their pace. So with Sheffield United most likely playing a low block, they're going to have to piece their way through a defence. So I expect it to be a low-scoring game with little to minimal chances. I got them winning this game 1-0. I just think it'll be a tough game going away to Sheffield United. Sheffield United having that new manager bounce. But right now, I just cannot see a world where Sheffield United win games of football. Just haven't got the quality, haven't got the structure yet to match with any of the teams in the Premier League. Our next game's a very interesting one. Is Wolverhampton Wanderers at home hosting Nottingham Forest. Wolves obviously coming off an important 1-0 win in the week to snap a 2-game losing streak against Burnley. They capitalised on Burnley's own errors there, making a mistake at the back and Hwang getting back on the score sheet once more. But for Wolves, we know how good they can be at home. We know they're almost ruthless at home. They get wins more often than not. And they come up against a Forest side that's got a lot of pressure. We'll touch them in a little bit. But for Wolves, it's clear to see, like I said midweek, when you get the ball at the feet of Hwang, when you get the ball at the feet of Matheus Cunha, and when Mario Lamina plays in midfield, if you get the ball at his feet, good things happen for this Wolves side. In too many other occasions with players missing or not feeding these sort of guys, they fall out of games. They tend to defend for long periods, but it's when these more creative players get on the ball, when Nelson Semedo can get forward, that's when they can pen in teams and create multiple chances. And whenever they're at home, they seem to find these players more often than not, and that's what gets them these big wins versus big sides in the past, and also scraping over the line midweek versus Burnley. As I said, they come up against a Forest side that have got a lot of pressure. The 5-0 loss midweek to Fulham. Rumours have it if Steve Cooper does not win this game, he will be sacked. So a lot of pressure falls on this side to get the result. They've been a hard bunch to sort of look at this year. Nottingham Forest haven't quite progressed like we thought from last season. Too many games in which their midfield and defence go missing. They concede too many chances and don't feed their best players, because their best players are in the front three. Morgan Gibbs-White, Origi, Tayo Iwanyi, Anthony Elanga. All of these players are really, really quality and silky on the ball, but they don't get enough service. Their midfield gets overrun more often than not. They cannot create enough in midfield, and the defence is having a hard time at the moment not conceding goals. So it's solidity in midfield and defensive areas in which Nottingham Forest need to clean up in order to get their season back on track, in order to save Steve Cooper's job. I still believe he's one of the better managers in the league. He's had a hard card drawn here with all the signings that Nottingham Forest have made, but they'll be up for this game 100%. I believe they'll play for the manager, but with Wolves, Gary O'Neill, his performances at home, I think they go over the line here with a bit of quality for the likes of Hwang, Cunha, Semedo in these sort of forward areas, gets them the chances and gets them the goals. I've got them winning this game 2-1 versus Nottingham Forest. Our next game is Aston Villa hosting Arsenal, and probably the game of the weekend. Villa, after knocking off other title challengers Manchester City, have the confidence, 14 wins on the bounce at home, to go and take it to this Arsenal side. They're a return fixture this time last season. Aston Villa were absolutely in that game versus Arsenal, and were taking it to them. It wasn't for the late goal from Jorginho that Arsenal wouldn't have gotten over the line. So we know in the past they can take it to them. Unai Emery will want his revenge over Arsenal, and we saw midweek the ability to overrun teams in midfield with this such dynamic 4, dynamic 3 in midfield with Tielemans, also alongside Kamara, Douglas Luiz and John McGinn can overrun Manchester City, so they can definitely overrun this Arsenal midfield. And at the end of the day, that's where this game's going to be won and lost. He's looked at the last game for Arsenal, a massive clutch 4-3 win over Luton with that Declan Rice late header. It all came, though, from that midfield creativity. Kai Havertz, Martin Odegaard, obviously Declan Rice scoring that winner. But his defensive cover as well is so important for this team. And out of that game, you saw that Arsenal aren't, unbreakable at the back. They've got a really solid back two in Saliba and Gabriel, but Luton put 3 past them from a counter-attacking style of football and pouncing on the mistakes from Raya. So can Aston Villa, and their front three, the pace they've got, whether it Diaby, Leon Bailey, Zaniolo if he plays out there as well, they've got a really pacey, physical front three. Ollie Watkins up top. I think the way to win this game is win the midfield battle, but utilise the wide areas, utilise your pace, create overloads, whether it be Endry Konza playing at right back, but also Luca Digne doubling up with Leon Bailey on the left-hand side. Really stretch the Arsenal defence and try and get in behind them or cross balls into the box. I see it being a tight game at Villa Park. The crowd will be right behind the Villains, especially considering they've knocked off one of the title contenders in midweek. If they go and win this game or get a result, or play their better football, you'd be thinking Aston Villa will be in the conversations for the title, just considering the week they've had. It's going to be an exciting game. I've got it ending 2-2. I think both teams will try and exploit each's weaknesses. There'll be a Goliath-type battle in midfield, and I just absolutely cannot wait to see what happens in this one. Our next game takes us back up north to Merseyside. It is Everton hosting Chelsea. Everton, what a turnaround in recent weeks. You take away those 10-point deduction, they would actually be ahead of Chelsea right now in the ladder and sitting in 10th in the Premier League. That goes to show their form in recent weeks, been very, very good. Finding, once again, results at home, creating that place to be a bit of a fortress. But it's not just a classical Sean Dyche counter-attack football. They press teams high up the pitch, and you saw against that Newcastle team, Kieran Trippier making 2 mistakes from that high press, from creating chances, from getting at the Newcastle defence. They still create heaps of chances, equal shots in most of their last 3 or 4 games. Goes to show they've creating equal chances from less possession. That's the way they're going to play their football. Physicality, width, and strong defensive cover. You look at Mikalenko, you look at Tarkowski at the back, really standing up. Branthwaite as well, he's had a great start to the season. And then in midfield as well, James Garner and Onana controlling in that deep position with McGinn. Similarities with those sort of guys there, and the fact that they get into tackles, but they can also progress the game going forward. And then you also got the wingers in Jack Harrison and Dwight McNeil, who scored another great goal on the weekend, 2-2 for him. And then obviously Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Doucouré as those 2 physical presences up top or down the middle. You've got a team that's very, very hard to beat and a very strong and physical side. Coming up against a Chelsea team who were really, really poor midweek versus Manchester United. They were just lucky they played Manchester United, because I think any other team would have put 4 or 5 past them in the chances that United had. Too many mistakes in this back line. The midfield looks too hollow, got too easily overrun. And I think Everton can exploit that in this game. They might allow Chelsea possession, but they'll press them in key areas, spring that press, get on top of them, get the ball going in their direction. And with the clinical nature of their forwards and wingers, I think they get the better of Chelsea at home. I've got Everton win this game 2-1 with just the form they're in, the confidence they have, and the quality in forward areas. I think they get the job done in this one. Our next game is an all-London affair. It is Fulham hosting West Ham United. 2 teams in very decent form at the current point in time. Fulham just stringing together great result after great result. They go and beat Nottingham Forest 5-0 midweek off the back of a great performance as well the week prior, and then Wolves as well beating them 3-2 not too long ago. They're just currently finding some form. They've got that defensive solidity. Anthony Robertson's playing some great football, as well as that centre-back partnership, which I continue to touch on. Bassi and Tim Ream are playing out of their minds at this current point in time. And you've got João Palhinha in that midfield doing what he does best, anchoring that team. And Andreas Pereira finding form as that real number 10. Jimenez looking like more of a figure up front, looking more of a presence, assisting, facilitating and scoring goals himself. And Willian from the flanks. You've got a team, once again, that is built on the backbone of defence, but can also spring attacks and be quite clinical in front of goal. It's a very tough team to go up against, similar to how they were sort of set up last season. They're going to be really, really hard to stop, especially at home, where they can go and express themselves and play a more front-footed style of football. They come up against a West Ham side that got a great result midweek versus Tottenham, 2-1, coming from behind and securing a win. Once again, you look at that midfield, James Ward-Prowse, Thomas Souček, Edson Alvarez, Lucas Paquetá when he plays through there. That's where their chances come from. That's where their best moments come from. Everything good goes through these players. And I keep looking at James Ward-Prowse and think he's got to be one of the most in-form English players in terms of midfielders currently, with James Maddison out. He puts game after game of great performances, has to play in a bit of a deeper role, can win the ball back, but his passing array and his ability to set things up for set pieces separates him from a lot of the other English midfielders as one of the best in the league. And they're going to get something out of this game. They're going to require Jared Bowen to put another masterful away performance on display. Now top 3 in terms of a streak, in terms of away goals in consecutive games. He's going to need to be on his fine form. They know they have a lack of a striker at this current point in time in terms of a physical number 9 who can score in front of goals. It all sort of falls on him. And I think that's why they lose this game. I've got Fulham winning this game 2-0. They've got too many informed players. They've got a better structure and a more sustainable game plan that will get them over the line. West Ham require a lot on the counter-attack and a lot of their midfielders to do a lot, whether it be going forward and going back defensively. So I think Fulham's a more all-rounded unit, and as such, they get the 2-0 win in this game. Our next game is Manchester City, who travel to Luton. Luton, once again at home versus one of the big six. They obviously got the 1-1 draw to Liverpool last week, the midweek, the devastation versus Arsenal, losing that game 4-3 with basically the last kick of the game. They've shown their cards. We know what they're going to be all about this season. Defensive solidity, getting teams on the counter-attack, and utilising Andros Townsend, utilising Tahi Chong, utilising Ross Barkley playing from deep areas. It's these guys with the quality that's going to get them goals, get them chances, and get them into games. Early in the game, Bell costs them a chance that leads to the Arsenal goal, but it's going to need these sort of fullbacks to be solid, be accountable, because right now the defence is something that's going to be so important for them getting things out of games. I think Ross Barkley's been a great find, the way he's revolutionised this Luton side in terms of his quality on the ball, to find the pass, to find the chance, and scoring goals like he did midweek is going to be so important for them. It's just unfortunate they come up against a Manchester City side that has not won in the last 3 games, 3 consecutive draws, controversy around some of them, but really, really needing something. Obviously, they lose midweek to Aston Villa as well on top of these draws, and it's just not been a great few weeks. Rodri once again out misses and they lose games of football. He'll be back and he'll want to get this team going in the right direction. A Man City bounce back game is in store, and I think it comes here against Luton, so I think it's going to be a hard night out for them. They're going to have to be very, very solid at the back and restrict Man City from just controlling games for long periods of time. We've seen teams that go at City and press them in certain periods and not allow them just to pass teams apart, normally do better versus them. So for Luton, yes, sit in your shape and absorb some pressure, but don't just sit in and expect to win this game of football. Get on the front foot, press them when you have the opportunity, and try and create havoc in that City side, because we saw Villa do it. I know it's a different level, but we saw Villa do it to them. We saw Tottenham do it to them at the Etihad, and that causes problems for these sort of teams, especially when they're so used to having so much possession. That all being said, though, I think Luton's great home run of great performances comes to an end. Man City win this game 3-0, I believe. They bounce back well, Haaland gets back in the goals, and City get back on track in this title race. Our final game for the weekend is probably the second best game of the weekend. Tottenham are back at home and they're hosting Newcastle United. Both teams looking to bounce back after poor losses in the week. Tottenham once again going up 1-0 and losing a game of football. It says a lot about how they are defensively right now. They're losing that integrity at the back and they're not creating as many chances and playing that free-flowing football like we're used to them playing. Finally, Romero comes back. He's back in the goals in their last game, but that supplies a lot of help for them defensively. But what I'm finding is these two teams are becoming quite fatigued. Newcastle haven't changed their starting lineup now in 3 or 4 games. They're really stretching themselves thin. I think they put a lot of effort into that Manchester United win 1-0 that against Everton. They were just fatigued, and those Trippier mistakes is not what you normally see from this guy. He's a great leader. He's a great player at Newcastle United. And I think in that game there, it just emphasised how tired these sort of players are, making these uncharacteristic mistakes and being overrun in the last 20 to 15 minutes there. In terms of Spurs, if they want to get anything out of this game, it's go back to playing that aggressive, expansive style of football, put pressure on this tiring Newcastle side and try and create things off their mistakes. For Newcastle, it's to get at this defence. Both teams are going to be attacking, exploit the holes in defence, exploit the holes in midfield, stretch this Spurs side that's looking also quite fatigued as well. I think the winner of the midfield battle will win this game, but also more importantly, I think whoever's more clinical in front of goals, both teams create a lot of chances. As who can take their chances that will win this game. I think Newcastle have a better group right now. They're more united and stabilised group despite both teams having a lot of injuries. I still think Newcastle are the more settled side. I got them winning this game 3-1, but it'll be an absolute belter on Monday night there between these two sides. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, that brings this episode of the Premier League predictions to an end. I cannot believe it. Match week 16 already goes to show how fast this Premier League season is flying past. We've got some great games from the weekend. We've obviously got Manchester City trying to bounce back versus Luton. We've got Spurs and Newcastle in that battle for the top 6. Do Manchester United continue their hot form, or do Bournemouth bounce back? And do Aston Villa do the double of their 2 title favourites this week? It'll be an interesting sort of game, that one between Aston Villa and Arsenal. Can Unai Emery get his revenge on his former side? So a lot of great storylines, a lot of great games, as it is most weeks in the Premier League. It never fails to deliver. That all being said, guys, if you enjoyed the predictions video, if you wouldn't mind liking it, subscribing to the channel, and sharing this channel with others who would enjoy this sort of content. We're growing at a nice steady rate over this sort of Christmas period, and I much appreciate all the support from all of you guys, from subscribing, from viewing, from liking the videos. It does not go unnoticed. And please, guys, hopefully enjoy the weekend's action. Hopefully there's another more set of great games. I'll see you guys in another video very, very soon. Until then, guys, see you later.